good evening, and welcome to the Night Owl. Whether you're new to the nest or you've made a home here, it's great to have you. Content may contain adult language and scenarios not suitable for all ears, so listeners' discretion is advised. If you like what you hear and you want to help support the Bird Brain Podcast, become a patron at patreon.com/thebirdbrainpodcast, where you can donate and expect some pretty cool perks out of it. Birds get a bad rep for not always being the wisest, but sometimes they know so much more than we do. Lock your doors, check your windows, and get comfortable. You won't be sleeping tonight. I give you the flock. The birds around my place were in abundance. My personal favorites were the hummingbirds. They'd zip around my house since we had a little garden, but they definitely favored my neighbor's yard much more. I mean, they had feeders, so it made sense. I saw them as my good luck charm, and since they fascinated me more than most birds, I developed an affinity for them. Whenever they came around, I knew I was in a good place, and they were apparently a good omen, and what they were capable of was amazing too. And we both love sugar, but I digress. But there was one other bird that came around that I didn't favor too much at all. The corvid. The crow family. It gave me the chills. Growing up, I heard cautionary tales about them. When they came around, it meant something bad was on its way. As a kid, my parents told us this to keep us on good behavior. And it worked. As I got older, I grew out of the superstition, but still, if I saw one, I never felt good. If you see one of those birds, you better be careful, because something wicked is coming. My grandma used to say. Some folklore stated that the birds were more of a prophecy, not good or bad, just foretelling of things to come. We never saw too many of them at all around my house. That was until my grandma passed. My parents and we became estranged from her. I'm still not sure why, since everyone has their take on the whole fallout. But because of that, it'd been about a week before we found out that she'd had even passed. Someone called us when they stopped seeing her outside. The neighbors said my grandma would sit on the porch every day. Didn't bother anyone. Didn't really say anything. Birds would come to her yard. She'd feed them. Shit, apparently she'd talk to them. More than people at one point. One of the things they pointed out that was eerie to me. When she died, they said her yard was pitch black. That's how many corvids were in her yard. But they weren't flapping around. They just stood there, staring at the house, as if they were holding a service. I wasn't there to verify how true this was, and nor my parents. But I did know that my grandma could be a little bit odd, and sometimes scary. Honestly, my relationship with her wasn't the worst. I loved that she was kind of weird, and she enjoyed my company too. Months passed since her death, maybe even a year. After everything got squared away, life went back to semi-normal. I was walking home one day on my usual route, and there was a side street I'd like to take. Kind of a little alleyway, but it was actually just a small street with little access for cars. As I walked, a corvid perched on a gate right as I walked by a house. It cawed and it scared the shit out of me. I motioned at it to get it out of the way. It flapped away but then came right back. I continued to walk. And another corvid. Same thing. Where the fuck are these things coming from? I thought to myself. I shooed this one away the same. The same reaction. At that point, I just ignored it and kept walking. After a while, I felt like I was being followed, though. And when I looked behind me, the bird was walking behind me. And not flapping. It had a weird hop to it. It kept its distance though, but instead of flying, it just kind of kept walking. My 20-minute walk home, this bird followed me the entire way. I finally got to my block, and as I reached my house, I noticed that my front door was slightly open. Before I walked in, I noticed the sky got a little bit darker. I happened to look behind me, and there wasn't one corvid, but a sea of them, standing completely still, staring straight at me. My neighbor saw me standing outside and called me over. She needed help with the shelf that was loose. I closed my door and went next door, and the birds just stood there. Like an army of statues. It was as dark as night. My neighbor brought me inside, and she told me to take a seat, but I noticed she was kind of frantic. Kind of pale, too. She ran into the kitchen and grabbed the phone. She disappeared for a good 3 minutes. And finally, she came back. Your parents are on their way. And so are the police, she said. But I was confused. I saw someone go into your home before, and I never saw them come out. I froze. Those birds, they followed me home. Because they knew what was waiting for me when I got there. So there you have it. Tune in next week for another story to keep you up at night. And if you have a story of your own you'd like to be featured on the podcast, email at thebirdbrainpodcast@gmail.com with the subject headline Night Owl. Comment, subscribe, rate, review. You can listen on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Red Circle. Sleep tight.
What's the best part of a Dunkin' Run? The coffee? Is it the coffee or the $1 donut or $2 stuffed bagel minis or $3 sausage, egg, and cheese that you can add to it? The answer, of course, is yes. Time for a Dunkin' Run. $3 offer available on sausage, egg, and cheese sandwich only. Excludes specialty donuts and fancies. Offer valid on medium or larger coffee. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer. Terms apply.